All right, we have just started recording. Welcome everyone to the North Precinct Advisory Council for October of 2025. We appreciate you being here. I think we have a number of new people, so I'll just take a moment. Oh, I should probably do this so that you can see me. Hi, I'm Katie. I'm the current president of the North Precinct Advisory Council. North PAC has been around for over 25 years. We are all volunteers. We have no budget. We have volunteers who pay for our Zoom license, so we appreciate that. Um, we basically are people who believe that we need effective and professional policing in Seattle, and we think we should probably show up to help make that happen, and keep the conversation open with the North Precinct. This is a great place to make a connection, to be able to talk directly to the police when you have a question or an issue, and make connections that can be really helpful. Um, it is our goal to have respectful, positive conversations. Obviously, we talk about difficult things here, but we do ask that you think about, your questions, how you phrase things. If you're in a situation which is really stressful, we understand that. We've heard that over the years, and we just ask that you think about how you present, because we know it's difficult often now to have positive or I should say, respectful conversations, but that's what we plan to do. If I ever interrupt you where you're talking or speaking, and ask you to bring it to closure, that's both to be respectful that other people have questions, and it's also because we really need to allow the person who can respond to actually have a time. So I'm trying not to be disrespectful of your question or issue, but I do occasionally have to mute people if that's a situation. Again, it's not meant to be disrespectful. We just need to keep the meeting moving and to know that other people can speak too. So we appreciate your cooperation. Please do use the chat. What we'll do is, as we go along, I'll read the questions from the chat. That makes sure that it's exactly how you want it to be said. It gets into our recording, which you can share with your friends when we post it the next day. And again, we ask that if we do have some time tonight, we probably will be able to take some live questions, in which case we ask that you raise your hand. There's a little feature that's called raise hand. It's right at the bottom of your screen, and ask that you wait to be called on. There are some people who are very comfortable in this environment and have a lot to say, and others who are not as comfortable. And if I don't call on you immediately, even if your hand was up first and fastest, that's because I'm trying to scan to make sure we hear from a variety of people so everyone can be heard. I want to very quickly introduce my fellow board members. They are Susan Strink, who's our vice president, Leanne Seaman, Diane Vincent, Nancy Rawhauser. I don't see Claudia Wold yet. I don't know if she's in. And then Melinda Jacobson is absent tonight. So you see my face, but it's a group of us. I also want to call out, we typically do have some good representation from the city council districts. Maritza Rivera in District 4, Wendy Sykes is usually with us. Deborah Juarez has her liaison, Paul Menifee has reached out. He's not available tonight, but he plans to attend. And then Dan Strauss for District 6, Joel Raphael is often here too. So again, if you have questions, if you see them in the list of participants, feel free to send them a direct message. That is fair game. I want to call out that our next meeting, we meet the first Wednesday of the months of September through June. Our next meeting is Wednesday, November 5th. And again, on Zoom, once again. Some of the upcoming topics, I think for our November meeting, we're probably going to have Paige Ulrey, who's a senior deputy prosecuting attorney for the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. She is the senior attorney for the Elder Abuse, Neglect, and Exploitation Unit, and she's going to talk about some of their work and resources for people. Also, we have the CARE unit who will come and talk to us about effective 911 and online crime reporting. I think that's something that people have some concerns about, so we thought we'd have them talk to us about what should we all be doing. We also have parking enforcement and use of automated license readers coming up in a meeting. And then, of course, we'll continue with our updates on Aurora Avenue crime, and also what's going on in North Seattle around Magnuson Park and some of the issues there. So if you're not a regular attendee, you now know that there's some good reasons to keep coming. And really, with that, I'm happy to say that this meeting we get to start with the captain, Captain George Davison, who is the commander of the North Precinct. And I'm going to remove the spotlight from myself. Captain Davison, thank you. We have an extended time tonight, but we'll, I hope, go ahead and start with your general update and calling out whatever good work's going on, and then we'll open up for questions. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the stats that were sent out, and I see a question about that in the chat as well. And we'll discuss it here in just a minute. But overall, the violent crime in the North Precinct is down 11% year to date, down 23% in the last 28 days. Property crime down 15%, and over the last 28 days, 27%. Burglary down 23%, and 27% over the last 28 days. 30% year to date for motor vehicle theft down, and shots fired down 17% as well. And then over the last 28 days, motor vehicle theft down 36%, and shots fired is actually equal to what it was in the last 28 days, if that makes sense. That's the overall picture. I'll actually dive down into it just a little bit more. So for rape and robbery, robbery is down 20%, rape is down 22%, and these are all year to date. Aggravated assaults down 5%. Arson is up 25%. So we had 28 last year. In the prior year, we have 35 currently this year. So small numbers equal big change. And then burglary 24% down, larceny down 10%. So that's just regular theft. And then motor vehicle theft down, I mentioned 30%. So the overall numbers in that. Next thing that I wanted to talk about was the Northgate area. I see it's actually in the chat here. And yes, it is accurate that it does show that it's higher related to certain types of crime every time. So the North Precinct broken down, it's very extensive, right? It's very large. We have kind of hotspot areas in the North Precinct. And so that does come up as one of them, and I'll discuss it here in a second. Plus Aurora, basically 85th to 145th is another hotspot area. The Magnuson area, as well as the University District, Ballard. I'm trying to think of any more. Those are the ones that I can think of. Oh, and Lake City Way, of course, off the top of my head. So different areas have different crimes that rise to the top. So the priority area for Northgate, looking over the stats, and we actually just did CStat today, which is when I have to present to the chiefs about kind of the ongoings in the precinct and what we're doing and what trends that we're seeing and how we're trying to address them. So in that Northgate area, the aggravated assault, there's been 19 year to date, and robberies are 31 with a total of 50. Property crimes in that area, larceny theft is the highest, right? 295 for year to date. Motor vehicle theft at 51 and burglary at 63. A lot of those incidents, I suspect, are related to what that area is. So you have the Northgate Mall, you have Target, you have Best Buy, and you have Dick's Sporting Goods. So those are all high theft locations. And oftentimes the robberies that are associated with it tend to be shoplifts that turn into robberies. In other words, somebody takes something from the store, and as they're going out, they get contacted by security and they use force to retain that object. In other words, they fight with security or they run away, they push them down, whatever. That then becomes a robbery. So our robberies appear to be higher. So I actually asked our crime analytics yesterday or the day before, I can't remember, to run the reports on those, do some background investigation to see if those robberies are actually the result of a lot of shoplifts turn robbery, if that makes sense. If there are different types of robberies on the street, things like that, that's something else that we can address. But we are in partnership with like Target and a lot of the stores over there. We go and we meet with them. We talk to the security advisors. We actually have an event coming up there soon to kind of meet with them and discuss the ongoing issues at Target, because they do have high theft there. And we try to get an organized retail theft operation there with our general investigation unit to go in and assist security in making some arrests and identifying some people that they may not otherwise know. A recent operation I'm sorry, I'm turning down my radio. Give me 1 second. Recent operation in the Fred Meyer in the Greenwood neighborhood. It actually took place yesterday. Our general investigation team went in there with the intent of working with security to arrest organized retail theft. So people going in there making a lot of theft or taking a lot of things that don't belong to them. During that operation, they arrested 2 people that are prolific offenders, have been stealing from that store multiple times, but the security was not able to identify them. So our general investigations team were able to identify them. And then on top of that, they went to contact one person for shoplift. That person took off running. Ultimately, the officers were able to take him into custody, and that person had a gun on them. So it was good that, you know, the operation was very successful. The dollar amount for what was stolen that day was pretty low, but the 3 main successes were identifying that the consistent theft suspects and then arresting a person with a firearm. So long story short, for the Northgate area, we're doing some analytics right now to find out what specifically the issue is there, if it's related to all the stores in that area. As you know, the Northgate area, the Northgate Transit area, the old Northgate Mall, which is now called the Northgate Station. I mean, it's littered with stores and retail, and the presumption is a lot of that is going to be related to shoplift and theft and robbery. But the violent crime there is actually lower than a lot of our other hotspots. So the focus there is to figure out what the problem is, not necessarily shift resources over there at this time until we identify what's going on. The next area that we kind of have a hotspot area is the South Ballard area, the kind of the industrial area down there by the docks. A lot of the stuff down there is not necessarily violent crime related, but is more related to property crimes, larceny, theft, things like that as well. So those are similar. We work with UCT and our Unified Care Team, and that's the citywide group that addresses encampments and RVs and different issues throughout the city of Seattle. And they work with our alternative response team, the ART unit, and they work together in conjunction to go down and contact our police officers that go down there are keeping the Unified Care Team safe while they do their outreach, provide services, try to get them to move along, and then clean up encampments. So that's the main focus in that area right now. As other issues pop up, I know that they have their alliance down there that goes around and walks around as well, their business representatives. And they are in constant contact with our project officers. So when they see trends or main issues that pop up, say repeat offender down there that keeps on robbing people. We had it happen not too long ago. Well, before I got here, I should say not too long ago, where we had somebody that was going into businesses and then would undress and go into the dressing rooms and undress and make people feel uncomfortable, and it kept on happening. So it obviously a repeated incident. They reached out to our project officer who was able to go down and identify that person and take him into custody. So that's the kind of relationship that we have down there, and we're trying to continue that and grow it and build it. So again, we have to work with as many agencies and departments as we can. As you know, we can't do it alone. It has to be a complete partnership. So, and not only the agencies, but also with our community. So the next priority area that I mentioned was Magnuson, the Magnuson housing group down there, as well as around in the Magnuson area. We have there are issues down there, meaning there's aggravated assault. So I'll give you a rundown of that. So the aggravated assaults year to date down in that area, which is the Sandpoint area, 19 aggravated assaults, 31 robberies for a total count of 50. A lot of the issues are property crime related. So we have 409 incidents of property crime, whether or not that's burglary, Larceny theft is at 295, so that's the vast majority of the issues. And then 51 motor vehicle theft, and then we also have all other, but those are like, when I say all other, it's assault offenses, disorderly conduct, DUI. So it starts hitting down into a lot of the misdemeanor crimes. So with that, we have 2 officers that are kind of assigned down there. It's their district now, essentially. So they log on their Union 90, they go down there and they handle area issues in that area, and they handle issues within a 1 to 2 mile radius of the park. So it's not, they're not assigned to Mercy Housing. They're not assigned to the park, but they have the ability to move around and operate down there and address things as they see it. A couple of good notable things that they've done. They've taken several guns off the street since they were assigned down there. And recently they located a vehicle that was decked out like a police vehicle. It had all the markings on it. It had blue lights, which is unlawful to have unless you are police officers, and found out that the person was going around and impersonating police officers. So they found the vehicle. They worked with security down there and saw this person driving in based off of security video, and were able to do some follow-up, impound that car, and then work with our criminal intelligence unit to see if there are any other instances throughout Seattle or other agencies where this person might be doing things that he shouldn't be doing with that vehicle. So those are some of the successes that are happening down there. Another really good success that I'd like to point out, one of the officers related to that detail while off duty was contacted by one of the officers on duty here, because another agency, an outside agency, had reached out and said, hey, we're looking for a murder suspect that resides down in that area. This officer, because of the community relationship that he has built down there, was able to work with not only the staff, but other community members that live in that area, knew what kind of vehicle this person drove, knew everything about the person, and basically from home, off duty, was able to kind of coordinate a response to get this person into custody. So help take a murder suspect into custody while at home and off duty. So I think that's phenomenal, and that's going above and beyond. So not even expected to answer the phone when they're off duty. So give me 1 second. I'm just taking a sip of water. So the next area of concern or hotspot is the Lake City area. We have a lot of the issues down there. There are 31 aggravated assaults. As you know, there were 2 homicides in Virgil Flame Park at the beginning, or not at the beginning of the year, just a couple months ago, or a month ago, excuse me. So there's been 31 aggravated assaults. Right now it says 1 homicide, but we know that there's actually 3 total. There was 1 at the beginning of the year, not related to the parks. It was separate from the parks, but 3 total down in Lake City, 2 rapes, 13 robberies. So the violent crime down there is, with the 2 added homicides, would be 49 incidents. And the burglary, arson, motor vehicle theft, things like that, are hitting about 179 incidents. So it's kind of a mixed bag there. And then the other crimes that I mentioned account for 319 incidents year to date down there. So while, I mean, it's kind of all over the board down there, but I do know that there's a lot of encampment issues, as well as people not moving along out of the encampments, accepting services, staying around. And we're trying to work with UCT as well as Art in the mayor's office now to see if there's anything else that we can do. Our law enforcement officers are going to be, we've already requested, directed, let's say directed, additional operations down there to include some plainclothes operations. I've requested our community response group down there as well to do as many operations as they can. I just authorized today for our community response group to come in on their days off to work special operations, not only in the Lake City area, but also in the University District and up on Aurora. So as many officers as I can get to work this area, I will. We'll move on from there. And I do know that the Lake City Community Council just got reestablished, and I've reached out to them, and I have a meeting with them, at least one representative tomorrow, to kind of do a walk around and see what I can do better, how we can partner better to address some of the community concerns down there. Aurora, that's obviously one that we talk about every time. So 85th to 145th is kind of the priority area. I've been working since I got here with as many agencies and departments in the city of Seattle as I possibly can. Recently, we had a meeting with the director of, see what it's called, Director of Graffiti Programs and Initiatives, so that we can see if there are public spaces on Aurora that we can put murals and do graffiti abatement. There's actually studies out. They let us know that if you put up a mural, it is 85% less likely to be tagged again. So I think that's a great stat. It also adds beautification to the area. I know that the mayor's office and a bunch of other departments are working on a project now that it's a long-term project to improve safety and beautification and everything along Aurora, all the way from 85th to 145th. But that's a long-term project. So when that happens, that's wonderful. But I have to worry about the day-to-day and what everybody's living through. So I'm trying to address the day-to-day concerns. I have bi-monthly meetings right now with the mayor's office and all the different agencies that are working on that. And I think that's it about Aurora. So just so you know, some of the things that we're doing with Aurora. So we have SDCI, which is the Seattle Department of Contract and Inspections. They handle the vacant properties, the graffiti abatement too. They also assist in that. Give me 1 second here. So yeah, SDCI, in contact with them. If there is a vacant property that is abandoned and people aren't taking care of it properly, then we can call SDCI. SDCI will try to find the owner and then put them under kind of checkups, observations, make sure that they're making sure that the property is fenced off, that it's free of garbage and graffiti and things like that. So our project officer drives Aurora all the time and tries to verify what's going on. And if we see encampments pop up or we see vacant properties, then he reaches out to SDCI and tries to work on those right away. You can see along Aurora as you go, there is graffiti, but we do our best to get those abated with the city of Seattle as soon as we can. We report it when we see it. What else? So SWAT has been doing regular visits on Aurora during the daytime. They do on-view directed patrols on Aurora. Our traffic unit too, they have one officer that is dedicated kind of to Aurora as much as possible. So he'll go and enforce traffic along Aurora. CRG, I've already mentioned that they will assist whenever they can. Our community service officers have been working north to south, talking to all the community, all the businesses along Aurora from 85th to 145th, working their way up. Let's see, our vice unit, they do operations at least once a month there. Their most recent one, they arrested, I want to say 4, maybe 5. I'm going to say 5, but don't quote me on that. I'd have to look it up. Between 4 and 5 people related to prostitution offenses. One of the person had a large amount of narcotics on them as well. So it was good. And then we had GIU does frequent operations up and down Aurora, whether it's up at Amazon Fresh or Home Depot. We've had them done there, and there's another property right next to Amazon Fresh that for the life of me, it's slipping my mind right now. So I apologize for that. I'll look it up in a little bit if I can't remember. And then we have our NOR 90 cars, which are our proactive cars, 2 officer cars that are literally assigned to Aurora to handle on-view issues on Aurora. So they will go up and down Aurora and do proactive work as much as possible during their shift. So moving on, last but not least, we got the University District is another one of our hotspots. So this is like this month, I want to try to focus on that a lot. I mean, not to the detriment of everywhere else. We keep our footprint in what we have, but I've asked for CRG as well as our patrol officers to do enforcement around University Way, Northeast 47th, and Brooklyn Avenue, as well as Frat and Sorority Row. We do have UW back in session now, and so we want to do our best to try to reduce crime in that area so that it's safe for our kids to go to school. So we're going to be putting out the mobile precinct out there in conjunction with bikes and our footbeats. We're going to have as much patrol presence as we can, in addition to having our CSOs doing some footbeats out there. They're in uniform. They can't really take enforcement action, but uniform and presence generally helps reduce a little bit of crime. I also have meetings with the UW partnership coming up, I believe, next week to kind of find out what we can do to address some of the issues that are going on in that area. And again, this is not at the detriment of everything else. We move resources as we can to address, the trends and everything that we are seeing. So a couple quick shout outs to some of the patrol work and some of the investigative work that's been going on in the North End since the last time that we met. The officers down in the University District arrested an arsonist that was lighting fires in the alleyways there. It happened after a brief foot pursuit. They were able to take him into custody. Down in the University Village, there was an ORT operation, organized retail theft operation with the General Investigations Unit at Victoria's Secret down there. They arrested 3 and recovered over $2,000 in merchandise. Our bike officers in the University District arrested on two different occasions, arrested some people that were dealing narcotics. One of them had several different types of narcotics on them. Our parks enforcement. So on the weekends, we have Golden Gardens as well as Magnuson, and those we continue to have noise complaints there. And we've been working hand in hand with the Parks Department and the Mayor's office since the beginning of summer, well, before summer, and we're already starting to work on a plan for next year to kind of bolster what was done this year and try to approach it before it becomes a problem, if that makes sense. This year we had officers on voluntary assignment. In other words, we would staff it if we could. We put out overtime department-wide and said, hey, if you can work from 8 o'clock at night till midnight and work just the parks, help security close down the parks and then enforce it. Again, that was on voluntary basis, so we only got people that were willing to come in. Right, it wasn't a forced activity. The other officers are answering 911 calls and calls for service, while these ones are brought in on overtime to address, to make sure that we don't have the violence that was in Magnuson last year. There were 2 homicides in and around Magnuson last year, so we wanted to kind of jump on that before there were issues this year. Golden Gardens. I just looked at the stats on Golden Gardens today. We had 1 shooting at Golden Gardens the entire year, and it was a non-fatal incident. Not that that's great. No shootings are great, but keeping those numbers down is always good. Working with the Parks Department to improve the security around the park to limit access, as well as put up kind of harden that area. In other words, put up boulders and things to make it so people could not trespass after hours and then party and cause noise complaints. Sometimes it was excess, sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes we couldn't get the officers to work that detail, and working with Parks and the Mayor's office to see how we can address things next year. Not that this year's over, just trying to improve the summertime plan for next year as well. I mentioned the Vice operation. There were 5 arrested in that. 2 different incidents on Aurora. There was a female walking on Aurora, and there was somebody that was harassing that person. That female called somebody to handle the harassment issue, and somehow a shot was fired. Officers responded to that area, pulled over the vehicle that they were associated with, got consent to search, located a firearm in the car, and arrested the driver for being a felon in possession of a firearm. So that was very recent, by the way. And then one incident that was odd, two subjects recently were taunting females on Aurora with clown masks and firearms. The officers were able to locate them, arrested both of them for the harassment as well as, for the harassment. Believe that is all I can present at this time, and I
Okay.
if the flurry of questions. So
Yes.
go
So
ahead.
if you're okay, I'm going to go ahead and read them. And I'm going to remind folks, please do go ahead and put it in the chat. We have a ton of questions in the chat, so I'm going to go there first. So that's your best bet for getting in tonight. And I'm just going to go in order because I think they're really all for you. And I may get a little brief if some of them are a bit long. Question for the captain. Seattle's hosting the World Cup next summer. The World Cup can be a terrorist target. Is SPD receiving special training in preparation for it?
Yes. So, whenever there is a major event, I mean, Seattle prepares for major events prior to them coming. Part of FIFA is you have to go through certain protocols before FIFA will indicate that you're one of the cities that they're willing to come to. So they work together with Seattle to verify what they need to keep their fans safe. In addition to that, there's specific training that not only our Seattle Police Operations Center staff, but also all the captains, lieutenants, officers, sergeants, everybody that'll be working those events. As it leads up to the event, we get more and more training related to what could potentially happen. Same thing happened this year with the World Cup, not the World Cup. This was the World Cup, right? No, Players Cup. What was it? The one that just happened.
Yeah, we get
I'm not a
Cup.
soccer fan.
Club
Don't
Cup.
hate me. I'm not a soccer
Club
fan.
Cup.
I'm a
The
baseball.
Okay.
World Club
Okay.
Cup.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. So the lead up to that, we got a lot of training as well about how to respond to certain events, how to handle large crowds. Oftentimes we send representatives to different locations that have hosted events similar so that we know what it's going to look like. And then we work with their professionals, the people that they have hosted and the people that they have host these events to make sure that we kind of know what to expect. Granted, it could be way out of our realm, but we try to plan for it the best that we can. And of course, we work with other organizations, whether or not it's FBI and all the different intel-related gathering groups, to make sure that we're trying to get the information that we need to make sure as many people are as safe as possible. So
That's great.
Yeah.
This next question is from Nancy. I think you already touched on this earlier, but
Yes.
just quickly, North Precinct stats about Northgate. I think you touched on that as a hotspot. Katie, who very wisely spells her name with a Y too. As a homeowner in North Park, I'm concerned about the recent uptick in criminal behavior, illegal dumping in the alley just to the west of Aurora Avenue North, illegal encampments, etc. Residents trying to report on Find It, Fix It are often reports closed with no action. How can they ask for more help for residents, especially those who need the metro stop at 105th, etc. So it's that ongoing Aurora related crime.
Yeah.
I think you touched on some of that, but
yeah, some of it. But I mean, if we have specific concerns that are not being addressed by the Find It, Fix It, if people have the contact information for our project officers or reach out to our CPCs, as well as potentially our CSOs are on there as well, and they report what they're hearing back to us. And then if we can adjust and shift resources, we will, or let our officers know, the Nora 90 car I mentioned that goes up and down Aurora and does on views, they can, hit those side streets, because my understanding that's near Fremont and then to the west of Aurora, kind of in that 107th area. So, having that information, if you report it to Find It, Fix It, it goes to kind of the city overall. Oh, I froze.
okay. I think we can still hear you though, so let's keep going.
It's coming back. It froze on my screen and now I'm all blurry. So
yes, that's all right. We can hear you great. Okay.
Perfect. So what I was saying is that goes to like a city location where it gets coordinated with city groups. So whether or not it's SDOT or SDCI or the Seattle Police Department or the UCT, like they all work in conjunction to work through those things. Sometimes they get handled or fall through the cracks, and SPD doesn't necessarily learn about it. So if you have those ongoing issues, if you can report them, and we'll try to see what we can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And both Emma and Christina are asking questions about the area around UW. What is SPD doing? You've touched on some of this too. Increase patrols and reduce violent incidents around UW Greek Row and surrounding UW areas. Any plans to add extra lighting, cameras, or private security to partnership with SPD? Also, Christina, do you have similar statistics you could share with Zoom into the UW area? And I think you did pretty much cover those, but I think you gave some special attention to that.
Yeah, the university district, that covers that Greek row. So when I'm talking about that, Greek row is covered on that. So what happened with the lighting and everything? I think I touched upon this, but I met with the fraternities and sororities last year with University of Washington PD, and the fraternity president was frustrated with some of the lighting and kind of the septed crime prevention through environmental design, right? He complained that the bushes were too tall, the trees were too big, the lighting wasn't good. So I had Caitlin Yep, who's on here as our CPC. She went out and did a security assessment because it's not necessarily security or a CPC SEPTED report because it's an entire block and kind of encompasses a lot of different things. So she did an assessment, wrote it up, what her suggestions were for improving some of the security. I sent that over to the mayor's office, who then was in communication with me as well as these other units on units and departments to have them go out, find out who owned the trees, find out if it was a city issue and if we could go and cut them back, or if it was privately owned, because we shouldn't be cutting down people's privately owned trees. Working on the lighting, seeing if we can get additional lighting in certain areas. So the lighting and the tree cutting, all of that doesn't fall within the realm of the city of Seattle, but we can help facilitate that sometimes, where we push it out. You know, we do that security assessment, push it over to the mayor's office, who then gets their departments working to try to address some of the concerns. So.
Great. CJ would like to know, when someone is arrested with a firearm, what happens to the gun afterwards?
If it's a legally possessed firearm, they can ultimately get it back. If it's illegally possessed, it stays in evidence, and then it's up to the court system. And I would also leave this up to Megan. I bet you she'll have a little bit better answer. But it ultimately goes into our evidence unit, and then if it's needed for court, it's used for court. If it's an illegal gun, in other words, it was stolen and we can't figure out who the owner was or anything like that, that gun will be destroyed. A lot of guns that are found in cases, once they are no longer needed, SPD will actually destroy the gun because they actually get melted down and destroyed. So those are for the ones that are illegal guns that people turn in, because we have those all the time as well, where people will turn them in because somebody passed away that had a lot of guns and they don't want the guns, or they've had a gun for a long time and they just don't want it. They'll bring it to a police department and say, hey, I just don't want it. Just please destroy it. And then we, I think it's kind of a biannual basis, we'll do kind of a gun destruction. So.
Great. So,
and then,
Captain,
Megan, do you have anything else to add about
Yeah,
how it's handled on the attorney side?
sure. Yeah. So, anytime someone, enters into a plea or some other sort of disposition on their criminal case, we routinely request of the court that that person has to forfeit the firearm that was used in the commission of the crime. And also then we request, they don't possess any firearms going forward. And that's usually granted by the court. So then the firearm that's already out of their possession because of SPD is forfeited. SPD then goes through the process of destroying it. There are some other mechanisms we have where it may not have been used in the commission of the crime, but the law says that if you are committing certain crimes and you have a gun on your possession, for example, a DUI is a great example. If you commit a DUI and there is a firearm in your vehicle that is yours, we can then move for like a civil forfeiture of that firearm so that it stays in the possession of the police and they destroy it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And we'll hear more from Megan in just a minute. Okay, Sunny has a question about the O'Reillys at 105th and Aurora. There's ongoing issues there. I think you're familiar with that, Captain. Basically, there was a time when people were being ticketed and vehicles being removed that were abandoned. Apparently there's an open air chop shop. And they've tried find it, fix it many times, but there's trash and such. Recently, he reported 12 days ago, and nothing has happened yet. Also attracts homeless campers, drug dealers, where people also handle business and in and out of these sitting vehicles all night long. Oh, you're muted.
So,
there you go.
oh yeah, I popped off. So for that question, I'm actually gonna have somebody get back in touch with you, Sunny, if I would like to look into it a little bit more. I am familiar with the O'Reillys. I didn't know about all the ticketing and the complaining of tenants having complaints of being afraid, and so I want to look into that a little bit more before I have an answer for that. So yeah, we'll get back to you.
Great. Okay, thank you. Let's see. Muriel says, thank you for your efforts in Lake City. I asked, when crime gets pushed off Aurora, are there predictable areas where it kind of pops up in response?
Not really predictable. I mean, is everybody familiar with the RTCC as well? What's going on with that?
I don't know that people
real-
even know what that acronym means.
Awesome. The real-time crime center. So there are cameras along the Aurora corridor right now that are assisting us in identifying issues that happen along Aurora. So if there's a shooting or incidents along Aurora, our real-time crime center can actually pull up that video while it's happening so that we can get real-time video of it. So that's currently along Aurora. Whether or not crime is popping up in different areas, I mean, if we show a lot of enforcement in one area, you know, we'll be able to address certain people in that area. But yes, crime will move, but will it move back? I mean, there's all sorts of studies about what happens with crime and what happens when you put a certain number of, police efforts into an area. They will shift and they'll move. So, people say you can't arrest yourself out of a problem, or you can't arrest yourself out of this problem. And that's why I say it's kind of a holistic, it's a partnership with multiple departments. We have to get, the laws and the court system and everything aligned, and the services that are needed in place for all of it to work, in my opinion. So it's kind of a all hands approach, kind of more of a holistic approach versus we just go in and make a bunch of arrests. That'll be temporary, right? I mean, ultimately that's not the ultimate fix.
No.
So
okay.
By the way, for Sunny, I just wanted to try to get back to that and make sure that we have some kind of contact with Sunny. So I'll think about that here in a minute.
Can you send a private message, or if Captain, if one of your staff can send a private message to him, it's probably easier for him to respond.
Okay.
So that he doesn't have to share his contact information with all of us.
Lieutenant Haynes, if you're on, can you go ahead and send him a private message and get contact information, please?
Lieutenant Haynes has wanted to help you out and say that the other story you were thinking of is Ulta.
Thank you. Yes, okay. Ulta.
Yes.
Numerous times.
Okay. So Nancy would like to know, is there a plan in place for SPD to, whoops, something just went away there. Sorry, when someone private messages me, suddenly it goes away. Is there a plan in place for SPD to patrol the Lake City Fred Meyer building once it's empty? Are you working with Kroger to inform them of their responsibilities to keep the building secure, etc.?
Yeah, so that'll fall on our project officer. So oftentimes when businesses go away, then our project officers reach out to the business prior to it going away and get the owner's contact information and work with the city and everybody to get them on the trespassing agreement and what their responsibilities are. As if they sell it, it's one thing. If they leave it as a vacant property, then they have to, like I said, with SDCI, they have to make sure that people can't get in there. They can fence it off. They have to basically continue to take care of their property even though they're not there. Otherwise, they can be fined by the city of Seattle. So.
Okay, great. Okay. let's see. Another topic out there, encampments, big time on interurban trail from 110th up to 130th. So,
Sorry, I was looking at a different one, more about Lake City, what can be done to remove encampments and drug dealing. So I think I already mentioned what we're working on there.
Okay.
I mean, the encampments. So when I came on, when we had encampments, officers would get the call and we would go and contact that person and ask them to move along. There weren't the resources that we have available now, and then ultimately the city of Seattle has a different process now where they use the unified care team, so they can't just go move an encampment unless there's um, certain things that make it more of a priority. Meaning, it's a direct. They're blocking public access, a roadway type thing. They can go and contact them and make a move that day for something like that. But like an encampment in a park or an encampment where it's not in those public access, they have to provide notice. Then they have to go out and meet with them, provide services, and let them know that they will be moving the encampment. They can move on their own, or they're going to move them. And then ultimately, any trash and garbage that's left behind, the UCT works to clean that up and get that. So it's not, the encampments at this point in time is not something where we can deal with the crime related to the encampments when we're able to, when we're not answering other 911 calls, things like that. But ultimately, the encampments themselves are handled by a different group in the city.
Okay. Great.
And that's that find it, fix it, and it works, ultimately gets to the UTC, and they prioritize them and get them all listed and hit as many as they can. So
great. You have, Amy's asking what kind of partnerships currently exist with the U District. You mentioned a U District partnership earlier.
Yeah, so
You
the
could
U
also say who's in there.
Yeah, the U District partnership is actually the businesses. We have a representative on here, I believe. I thought I saw him.
Dawn, I think Dawn's here.
Yeah, Don Blakeney. Don, do you want to talk about the U District partnership and what it actually is, and who's a part of it?
Is he still on? Oh, I don't see him here. He might have dropped off. He was on earlier and he gave you a thumbs up for the.
He heard all the things that I said and he dropped off. So
That's
good.
right. That's right. But I think you answered. It's generally the business. Is it the UW too?
No, the UW is separate. So the UW handles whatever happens on the UW. UW PD handles whatever happens on the UW campus, and then SPD handles Frat Row, Greek Row. I'm sorry, the Greek area, as well as University Way, and all of the crime in that area. So the U District partnership, a bunch of businesses got together. They worked together to address the minor issues that don't necessarily rise to having a police officer respond. They clean up graffiti on their own. They handle a lot of the disorder related issues on their own. They have people that walk around in clothing that signifies that they are representatives, that they're part of the partnership, and they ask people to leave voluntarily, and ultimately if they don't, then SPD gets involved. So when we're available.
Now I'm going to, since we have Megan, of course, on the agenda soon and Casey, I don't see Casey yet. So Megan, can I give the captain just a little more time? Do you need a lot of time tonight? No? Okay, that's great.
Fine, yeah.
So thank you. Because we do have quite a bit. So I'm going to do a little sorting here because we have more questions than we can probably get through in the next 10 minutes.
I can answer faster if you want.
Pardon me?
I said I can answer faster if you want. I see encampments big time on interurban, so I'll write that one down.
Yes, and I think that that's been called out here. The things around Aurora, you can see, and we can forward to you this in case you want this list. That is easy for us to do. So folks, if we can't get to your question, because there's a ton of them, we can provide the list that you put in the chat. That's one of the advantages of using the chat. So we can give it to the captain and they can see the places you're calling out. Alex is also calling 133rd in Aurora. Sunny's asking once again there was a group. Faye Garneau, a longtime business owner on Aurora, used to meet with the Aurora merchants. I don't think SPD participated in that. I'm not sure. Maybe they did. But basically asking if there's any Aurora merchants sort of meeting with SPD that you're aware of.
Not that I'm aware of. I do know that I did have a meeting at the beginning of summer with the mayor's office and several businesses along Aurora. It was kind of a business walk and
Okay.
talk to discuss the issues that were going on there. And we do regularly meet with people along the corridor. I know our project officers reach out to the DESC facilities as well as some of the low income. They reach out when we're having issues with certain businesses. The project officer and oftentimes Megan will go out with the project officer and kind of discuss what they're doing, how they can improve it, what legally we can pursue if they don't do what they need to be doing. And
Right.
yeah, so.
Okay.
I see one about, motorcycle traffic and things. I mean, I mentioned what we have. I mean, our officers are out there when they can be on Aurora
Right.
patrolling not only for traffic, but we also have the traffic unit that's out there regularly whenever they can get out there. And
Right.
I mean, they stop stolen cars daily. Our
Right.
officers are out there stopping stolen cars. All of our cars are equipped with automatic license plate readers. You have a meeting on that coming up, so our officers will be just driving by a car, and the automatic license plate reader will let them know that the car that just passed them is a stolen car, and then it's really helped identify those cars real quick. So it just runs them for stolen and whether or not they have warrants and hits. So.
And one of the things, maybe suggestion for that group, because Sunny and Rudy and a couple others have had various comments about that. It might be good if they feel that's important to them as a group of business owners. I would urge them to reach out directly to see if they can have a meeting, or if they want ongoing meetings, that would be something to reach out to you to ask about, or.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Me
great.
or Lieutenant Haynes, and we'll try to put something together, or our CPC issues.
Great.
Our CPC
Okay.
is we actually have a new CPC. I believe they're going to be introduced tonight.
That's great. We're excited.
Yep.
Okay. A citizen suggested SPD impound cars for Magnuson Park offenders. I assume they mean DUI and illegal activities. Does this already happen? Does the car get impounded?
Where's this question?
At Magnuson Park.
Again? I'm sorry. That can people impound cars? So
Yes.
last weekend, one of our sergeants went out there and impounded 7 cars over the weekend.
Great.
And did some park exclusions as well. Some of the issues that come up with impounding cars are the signage in the parks, and I'm working with the Parks Department on that to enforce it properly. If the signage isn't there saying that you can't do this, then it makes it difficult sometimes in court. So and for the legal aspect of it. So working with the Parks Department to get up proper signage to say, hey, these are the park rules, and if you don't abide by them, these are the type of enforcement actions that can be taken. So the sergeant was able to use some of the signage that was there and then acted on it this weekend. But it's really easy for us if there's a sign that says, if you are parked here, you will get towed, and they stay parked there, then it helps out. So, but again, that's staffing related. Every time we impound a car, we have to wait for a tow truck. So that's time that we're not available for other things. So.
Okay. Christine wants to clarify. So the extra patrolling for the U district is just for the month of October?
Just so when we give additional things, it doesn't mean that I'm going to pull it all back. It just means like when we can add extra enforcement for a period of time, we'll try. And it doesn't mean that we necessarily will pull it back or adjust it or do anything. We have to see what the impact is, what's going on, and things like that. And we also have, as I mentioned, the North Precinct is huge. It has almost 250,000 residents. So I just looked up the stats today based off of the most recent census. It's like 247,000 people in the North Precinct alone. We have about 100 and some odd officers that handle that whole area. So applying those resources, I have to be not sparing, but I have to be very kind of pushing it around where it's needed at the time. I mean, if you look at the heat maps, Aurora always has issues, right? And University District has issues. The areas that I mentioned have different types of issues. And if we see it, I can't promise it, but like if there's a spike in shootings on Aurora, well, now I have to put my resources over there to see if I can kind of calm or quell some of the issues that are happening there, if that makes sense. I can't promise or predict or decide where to put it. I have to address what I'm seeing at the time, at least for now.
That's great. So we're getting almost to 8 now. And again, I urge everyone to put their questions in the chat because we can capture those and forward them on to the captain, even if we don't quite get. We've gotten through most of them because some of these overlap. Claudia wants to say, shout out to North Precinct officers who responded to a neighbor threatening suicide. The quick response, care, compassion, professionalism was impressive. The person is stable and okay. Now that's great. What a great spot. Maybe that's where we're at 7:57. And I think that's about all we can get to. We already gave you 10 extra minutes. It's a good thing we didn't have a speaker tonight because there certainly was a lot. I recognize that some of you feel frustrated if I didn't read out your specific question, but I think we captured most of the key items. I think some of these overlap a bit. We can, of course, provide information on to the captain to follow up. And I think with that, now, do you want to take this moment to go ahead and introduce your new crime prevention officer?
Sure. Let me see if she is on.
Okay, let me.
Oh, she is. I see her. All right. So our newest
Hang
addition
on,
to the North Precinct. You
let
ready?
me find them. Is that Anna?
Yes, Anna Carpenter is our newest community police.
And should I
crime
highlight
prevention
Caitlin
coordinator.
also?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's Anna. Hello. And there's Caitlin.
Hello.
There we go.
So real quick before she talks, I will say that she is learning the ropes right now. Caitlin's taking her around to all the different community events and assessments and everything. So I think she might be drinking from a fire hose, but she'll soon be available to address some community concerns. So I'll turn it over to you two, however you want to talk.
Maybe just a quick, like, what does a crime prevention coordinator do? We only have about 2 minutes.
I'll just quickly introduce myself again. Yeah, I'm Anna Carpenter, and I'll be the Northeast Crime Prevention Coordinator. That way Caitlin won't have to be dealing with the whole North Precinct. But until I, fully grasp everything going on and stuff like that, Caitlin and I will be going around together for the time being. But Caitlin, if you want to kind of address what our role really encompasses, she would be good at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. I think I know most people here, but for those of you who don't, my name is Caitlin Yep. I'm a crime prevention coordinator for the North Precinct. I cover Northwest usually, but for a little while I was covering all of North Precinct. Our job encompasses a lot of doing community engagement and kind of talking about crime prevention. So one of the big things we do is this. We go to community meetings and talk to community. We do community events. We ran into Andy yesterday actually, at the Magnuson Park Senior Resource Fair. So we like to do fairs that we can just give out some free swag and just talk to folks and answer questions one-on-one so that folks can get their questions answered immediately without needing to wait for an email or for us to be able to come to them. Another big one we do is security assessments. So the captain already mentioned it. We have training in what's called CEPTED, which is Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. And it's talking about lighting, trees, glass, locks, fences, things like that. We do those for free, and we do them for homes. I've done one for Aurora. We did one for parks. We do them for churches. So feel free to reach out to us. We'll make sure that we'll have both of our emails in the chat before the end of this meeting. What else do? We do a personal safety class. It's about a 2-hour presentation. It's about an hour and a half presentation, PowerPoint, and then about 30 minutes left for questions. We bring it's either us and one other officer to try to talk to, not only from a civilian perspective, because Anna and I are not officers, we're civilians, but we'll work alongside officers so we can get the perspective of both civilians as well as officers. And I did want to mention one thing is that we're doing a drug take back event this October. We do this every April and October. We do post a location at the North Precinct and the Southwest Precinct. So I will make sure to also put that in the chat. Pretty much what we're doing is we're partnering with the DEA to collect unwanted drugs. So unwanted, unused, expired, any other kind of a medication that you have that you don't want to put down the trash or down your toilet, we collect them, no questions asked, and we give it to the DEA, and then DEA burns them, gets rid of them, and makes sure that they don't end up on the street. So I will make sure that both Anna and I's emails are in the chat. I will also make sure that the drug take back event is also in the chat. And then let us know if you have any further questions. Feel free to email us. Email is the easiest and best way to get a hold of us. And I hope that I talked fast enough for you.
You're doing great. We're glad to have
Thank you.
someone else to help you out. That's a lot of territory to cover. So thank you both for what you do. We're looking forward to knowing more about you, Anna. Take care. Okay, so I think we are now on to Megan Westfall, and I'm going to add the spotlight and take Captain Davison out. There we go. Megan, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I am Megan Westfall. I think I know a lot of you on here, but I work with the Seattle City Attorney's Office. I work alongside SPD up at the North Precinct with Caitlin and Anna and the Captain and Lieutenant Haynes. Tonight, I have a couple quick updates for you all involving two kind of important legislative updates that occurred over the summer. So this past summer, our city council passed two different laws, which while they're civil in nature, they do have like a pretty significant impact on crime that occurs in the city, which is really important to note because as Captain Davison stressed, resources are thin for SPD to be really enforcing a lot of the crimes out there where officers are going from 911 call to 911 call. So anything that, we can kind of take off their plate and find ways to enforce civilly is really a good thing for the city. So the first thing that the council updated is the chronic nuisance statute. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with this statute. You've probably heard me talk about it at prior North PACs. SPDs used it at least 4 times over the last several years to impact criminal activity occurring at the motels on Aurora. Most recently, SPD used this tool over the summer to essentially close the Oak Tree Motel, which is located in the 8900 block. They declared it a chronic nuisance, and then the owner decided to close and sell the property, which was a great outcome for public safety in that area. The original iteration of the chronic nuisance statute had some shortcomings, and the council addressed those and fixed them. One of the biggest shortcomings was that the criminal activity that was necessary to declare a property a chronic nuisance had to occur on the property. And while that may seem just kind of like some semantics, what we were seeing was that patrons or people that were associated with the property, would have an issue on the property that would then unfortunately spill over into the public right-of-way, into the streets, the sidewalks, and the surrounding neighborhoods. And because ultimately the criminal activity would occur off the property, we weren't allowed under the strict reading of the statute to use those activities to declare a property a chronic nuisance when clearly that activity stemmed from the property. And so what the council did is they amended the statute so that it now allows for incidents like that I described to be used in determining whether a property is a chronic nuisance. So specifically, it says that the police department can use incidents if they occur in close proximity to the property that we're dealing with, and there's a nexus between the incident and the property. So just to be clear, if there is some sort of, if there's a DUI that happens, nearby a motel, that's not something that we could use in order to declare that a chronic nuisance in and of itself. But if there is some sort of nexus, it's a patron of the motel, it's someone that had been there recently, perhaps we could use that, which has really, really been helpful. The council also greatly expanded what types of incidents could be considered when determining whether a property should be declared a chronic nuisance. So the original statute really had a focus on violent offenses and drug-related offenses. And the amended statute now includes many other categories. One of the big ones is it includes liquor offenses now, which is really helpful because while it might not impact the North Precinct, as we don't have as much of a nightlife as some of the other precincts, but oftentimes we are seeing a lot of issues occurring in and around nightlife establishments, bars, and whatnot. So that addition is super helpful. The statute also included offenses now that involve stolen or trafficked property, which, might seem kind of like an odd one to add, but what we are seeing a lot of is businesses that are being used for dealing in stolen goods, right? And those businesses are often epicenters of the organized retail theft trade that we're seeing out there. And so that's a really helpful tool. The second legislative update is the passage of a new civil enforcement tool to address graffiti. I know Captain Davison mentioned graffiti on the Aurora corridor. It's not just on Aurora, it's quite frankly throughout the city. And it's a blight. And so this new tool is really helpful in that respect. It was approved by the council in July and went into effect in August. So it's really, really new. And what it does is it allows my office to pursue civil lawsuits against individuals who have committed graffiti within the last 3 years. So there's a look back window because a lot of this graffiti, has been occurring for several years. And so those people that are responsible for graffiti in the past can still be held accountable for it. But we also had to put, a time frame on it. So we're not holding people accountable for things that happened, 10, 15 years ago. What this does is there's a civil penalty under this ordinance, and it's $1,500 per violation, along with restitution. So anything and any damages. So this can include any of the labor or the materials or the cleanup costs that are incurred by either the city or by a private property owner to deal with the graffiti. It does apply to both city property and to and to private property. And it's really hopefully designed to combat the increase in graffiti that people are seeing throughout the city, and really hope that it'll deter repeat taggers and reduce the financial burden both on the city and on private property owners to abate this graffiti. Just to kind of put it in perspective, last year alone, it's estimated that between the city and private property owners, over $6 million was spent to abate graffiti damage. So hopefully this will have some significant dents in that. And so we have already filed 3 civil cases under this ordinance, which, just went into effect in August. So we were really quick to get started on that. And it's against 3 really prolific taggers that are responsible for thousands and thousands of graffiti damage throughout the city. The complaint involved 25 discrete violations by these people. And these are people that, SPD has identified as being very prolific throughout the city and vandalizing property. So those lawsuits were very recently filed within the last few weeks. I don't really have an update as to where they are in the process, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to recoup a lot of those costs and the restitution, so that we can use that to hopefully clean up the city and then also deter future people from acting in this manner. We do have several lawsuits that were kind of in the queue waiting to be filed, and I expect, more lawsuits will be forthcoming. So hopefully this will be a really effective tool to combat that. And that's all I had to update on tonight. Are there any questions? I was not paying attention to the chat, but maybe there's something.
I don't see anything specific to you in the chat. I think that was a great overview. You got a couple of thumbs up about taking action on the Oak Tree Motel. So
that's also a big thanks to SPD on that.
Great. Let's see. Oh, okay. I think we are good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Megan. And I have got to just say that in his classic just style, Casey has just entered the room. Casey McNerthney is here to give us an update on the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office.
Hey, folks.
Where did you go? There you are. Let me add the spotlight. You could not have timed that better.
No.
Had you tried. That was perfect, Casey. Welcome. And it's your turn for an update.
Hello, folks. It's good to see everybody. And if anyone has questions, please send those in the chat, and we'll have some time for that afterwards. One of the things that you might have seen on the news today was the rollout of the Safer Schools strategy, which highlights the Ingram shooting and the Garfield shooting in the last few years. The Safer Schools strategy there's a couple prongs to that approach. one of them is what the prosecutor's office realized is that districts weren't talking to each other very often. And there also wasn't previously in the decades and decades of the prosecutor's office, or really throughout Washington state, there wasn't a great system to let a school district know that there was a kid in their school who had been charged with a gun crime. So we started doing that. There's been more than 200 of those notifications that have gone out. And the idea is to try to tell people, hey, if the court orders them back to school, you should know this, not only to protect them, but also the other people in the school, and have a good plan on that. And one of the elements that we rolled out recently, in addition to that Safer Schools strategy, which we've talked about here, is the extreme risk protection order element of it. So an extreme risk protection order, or also called an ERPO, was passed more than a decade ago. Around 70% of Washington state voters approved that. And you can't get a gun control measure passed by roughly 70% of any state if you don't also have reasonable gun owners who say, yeah, this makes sense. And that's what we had here. And what an ERPO does is it takes the guns out of the home temporarily of someone who's in crisis, either someone who wants to hurt others or hurt themselves. And so the idea is with juveniles with guns, whether it's in school or whether it's in other situations where we know the juveniles use guns improperly, going to the home where they're getting those guns and saying, hey, we shouldn't let them have access to it. Because the other approach that we've talked about here a few times is trying to work with state lawmakers to say that the unlawful gun possession law of, it takes 5 convictions for 5 different guns before you have meaningful rehabilitation at the state level for juveniles. That status quo doesn't work, waiting for 5 different guns in 5 different scenarios. So rather than wait until the next legislative session in a January, February, we thought, what can we do now to keep other kids from getting hurt or other communities from getting hurt or stop other school shootings? And the ERPO response was the way to do that, was, to try to go in. There's also a pretty strict criminal liability in Washington state. A lot of people with, in conversation think, well, can't you hold the parents liable? And you can civilly, but the law in our state is pretty clear that it's very tough criminally to be able to do that. Probably the best example was the Marysville-Pilcher high school shooting several years ago, where the guns that were used were the dad's guns, and he had those improperly. He was charged federally for unlawful gun possession, but the jury couldn't hear that those guns were used in a school shooting, which really shows how tough it is to hold parents accountable under criminal law. But in the civil sense, it makes sense to say, okay, at least temporarily, let's get those guns out of the house. If you have a threat to even the family, the immediate family, or the kid who has the guns, or other people. So that's something that we're working on now. The other part to that is that it takes resources to do that. And there's plenty of ERPO cases on the adult side that happen every day. Every single day, our ERPO team, and if you saw, and they're all public record, but if you saw those petitions for the extreme risk protection orders of what people are saying they will do if they get guns, it's really scary. I mean, there's people who are truly in crisis, which is why you understand that a judge would say, hey, we don't want you to have guns. And most reasonable gun owners would say the same thing too. You don't want somebody who's in crisis to hurt other people. The hard part is our ERPO team that handles those and works with law enforcement, Seattle Police, to make those happen. They've got a huge caseload, and so we need resources. The county council passes the budget in November. We're going to be working with the county council and the executive to try to get additional funding in the budget for things exactly like this, because that seems to make sense. And so you might see that coming up. If any of you have questions about it, I can actually shoot to Katie what Lisa Mannion, as the King County prosecutor, what her budget ask was. And this was a big part of it, was just saying, hey, we need resources for common sense solutions. that's a big part of what you'll see, or or what you will see. Jackie Kent, who was a reporter from Como, who live streamed the whole briefing about this afternoon. There's also lots of efforts that are happening around Aurora Avenue North. I would bet in the next 3 months you'll probably hear more about that. We know the Seattle Police and the mayor's office are working on some things there, and the prosecutor's office is being supportive of prosecuting the pimps, the human traffickers. Although that's not very satisfying for the folks who live by there or who commute up and down there or just drive up and down Aurora, and I'm one of those. It's pretty hard to see the human misery that it's happening there, where you see people just in crisis and who need help there, and people shouldn't have that environment on Aurora, and that's what people in the prosecutor's office and the mayor's office and SPD are trying to address. Let me look at the comments to see if there's things that
I think that one question is, how do you reach parents proactively to secure their guns? There's a statistic she references about teen boys successfully committing suicide, something like 58% of gun deaths among teen boys. Are there proactive efforts to do an educational message or anything you're aware of?
Yeah, I mean, and that stat is right. There's a lot of, every day, almost every day, in the medical examiner's report that we get at the office, and that the public can get too, you see teen suicides all the time, and it's pretty heartbreaking because being a teenager is rough. I remember that, and I think we all do. And if they can just make it through a little bit, it gets easier, I think. But the proactive message is there's a couple of ways that we try it. It's not so much the prosecutor's office, although we would certainly support it. But the key is having administrators or those first responders in the school sense, the teachers, the counselors, the principals, the coaches, to say, hey, this kid's kind of worrying me, and you don't have to have a criminal case for the prosecutor's office to be involved. If we have a coach who comes to us, and there's a lot of different districts, both the public schools and Catholic schools and other private schools, if you have a coach or a teacher or a counselor who sees somebody, a kid who's having a hard time, and they believe that they're going to hurt themselves, whether it's with a gun or another weapon, they can come to us and we can try to intervene at the civil level with an order from a judge to say, hey, those weapons have to get out of the house. And with the Urbo cases, those are just guns, but we see a lot, and they don't make the news nearly as much as they happen, but we see very often coaches and teachers and administrators saying, hey, we're worried about this kid and we need to get in the house maybe in the next hour and a half or so, that quickly. It's not so much our side, and we don't hear about it in the community because we're not in the right demo who's trying to hear that. But certainly there are teachers and counselors and coaches who are making those proactive statements in the schools to say, hey, and also being on the lookout for those kids, in those one-on-one conversations.
Yeah. Claudia follows up with thinking beyond schools, whether there's any efforts to reach parents just in the community in terms of gun violence or gun safety, pardon me. So, but it sounds like there's nothing specific that you're aware of.
Maybe one thing, and this would be something to do probably after the budget hopefully comes through for us, because we really could use those resources. But maybe that's something that we could do proactively to say, just work with the media to help share the news, to say, anybody on this call can make an Urbo petition. You don't have to be in a school. You don't have, there's been times where even I've had friends who have said, hey, we're really worried about this situation. How do we get the guns out of the house? And anybody can go to SPD or the prosecutor's office and say, hey, you need to know about this. And 24 hours a day, there's somebody available to help you with it. So maybe that's a good suggestion. Maybe we should do that with reporters and with the different community groups like the North PAC and other groups in the city and in the county to say, hey, most people don't know about that, but let's try and change that. Let's see if you know somebody, let's, here are the resources, the same way that you would call in graffiti if you see that, or a pothole. If you see somebody in crisis, you should be able, we should do a better job to let people know, here's the number that you call if you see somebody in crisis. So it's not that panic of, who do you Google and where do you go?
Yeah, great. So there's another question, but I think this is more of a Megan question. You don't deal with nuisance properties, do you?
We sure support that Chronic Nuisance Property Act, which Ed McKenna got passed with the help of Tim Burgess back in probably 2009 or 10. But that is with the city's with the city attorney's office.
And Megan has kindly just answered Alex's question to say, hi, Alex, the chronic nuisance statute specifically exempts facilities like the ones he referenced from being declared a chronic nuisance. So I understand that would be frustrating. Okay, do we have other questions in the chat for Casey? There's another city question about DESC. Anything else for the King County Prosecutor's Office? You know what? We do have a number of new people. Could you just very quickly, since we've got a couple of minutes, could you just draw the little bright line between what you prosecute versus what the city attorney's office does real quick?
Sure. Probably the biggest ones in the North Precinct, if you look at Aurora, if you have somebody who's buying sex on Aurora, usually guys, those are handled by the city attorney's office. Also, prostitution go to the city attorney's office. That's under the city law and across the state. Those are gross misdemeanors. If you have somebody who's a human trafficker, which we also see a lot on Aurora, those come to our office, and we've got 2 phenomenal senior deputy prosecutors who handle those cases. Drug possession, if you see people doing fentanyl at a bus stop, which we've all seen, I think, at some point, those go at the city level under the city and state law. If you have people who are moving fentanyl, those go to our office at the King County Prosecutor's Office, and we routinely, almost every day, I think we've averaged, if you look at the last 6 months, I think it was exactly 1 a day that we've charged for drug dealing cases. 98% of those, 99% of those are not small time pot deals. The few marijuana cases that we see are huge scale drug houses, from what I've seen, and about 70% of those are fentanyl or meth or both, and about 15%, 20% of the time you get people who also have guns illegally. Gun crimes, if criminal trespass goes to the city, malicious mischief can go to the city or to the county, depending on what the severity is. If you threaten somebody with a gun, that comes to us as a felony harassment. If you use a gun, that definitely comes to the King County Prosecutor's Office. That's a felony. The most serious crimes in King County come to the King County Prosecutor's Office. About 20% of the crimes, roughly, that are committed in the county come to the King County Prosecutor's Office as felonies. Roughly 80% of the crimes that are committed in any community, or most communities in King County, go to the city level under state law. Probably the most frustrating thing that we've all seen, I think, commonly is shoplifting. When you see somebody leave with a couple cases of beer or a shopping cart, it's so frustrating to see that. And under the law, that that goes to the city level. If you steal a Snickers bar and you pull a gun or a knife on somebody, or if you fight back, that goes to the felony level. So that's the breakdown there. There's a lot of times, Megan has been a real rock star, and her office in coordinating with us to combine those cases at the misdemeanor level to say, hey, this pattern rises to the felony level. So even if under the law an individual case is not a felony offense, those really can combine, and that only happens if you have a good city attorney's office, which we really do now. And people like Megan who make sure that we know about it, and that communication has been phenomenal. Really, really great. So there's a good partnership there, and it's so nice knowing that she and others are there.
That's great. I threw a question into the mix here.
Great.
How is the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office caseload? How quickly can you act on a referral from SPD typically?
Well, that's actually good news. So as of Lisa Mannion, as the King County prosecutor, about 4 months ago, said, "Hey, we've in the 130 plus years that the office has existed, there's never been a policy, but there should be, that when we get a case referral from police investigators, whether it's Seattle police or anybody, we should make a decision on that within 30 days because we want to get a victim's voice heard in court. We want to have accountability for the defendant. And if there's not the evidence, we want to get that either back to police to say we need the evidence or we don't have the evidence, whatever it is." And so that at the start, roughly the middle of the year, she rallied the office and said, "Hey, by 10/1, by October 1st," and she called it the 10/1 project. We've got to have this, a, a, a priority filing decision, a fast track filing, really. So if we get a case from SPD, we need to have a decision one way or the other within 30 days. And there are some things that are out of our control, resources and funding being the number one from the county general fund. The other part is we saw a big delay when the courts had to slow down, where we couldn't get arraignment times or couldn't get our court hearings, not at the fault of judges, but just because of the pandemic. And so, there was months long backlog during the pandemic, but the key was when we get a referral, we've got to get a decision on it within 30 days. So either charge it, make it clear that there's not the evidence and explain why, or if there's the possibility, even the remote possibility of a charge coming, refer it back to SPD to say, okay, can you get us specifically these elements to see if we can charge this case? And as of today, we're totally caught up, which is for the first time in the history of the prosecutor's office. And so that's a big step. We're going to note that with some folks next week, but that's actually some good news to share with everybody.
Wow, that is incredible.
Great timing on that question. Yeah. Sounds like I planned to deal with that, but no, they're really, it's just a weird coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Casey. Appreciate that. Taking a little more time and explaining that with some new folks. I think that's really helpful to get a sense of sort of who can answer their questions. So thank you and have a great evening. We'll talk to you next time.
Sounds good.
And I am going to go ahead and wrap us up saying, first of all, if you didn't notice, Community Service Officer Jane Dorr has put her contact information into the chat. She is wonderful, as are Caitlin, Anna. I don't know her yet, but I think she'll be great. There's some great resources to tap into in the North Precinct. So make sure you know a little bit about what they do. I do want to call out that after we started, we got a couple more folks in I didn't recognize. We always appreciate it when some of our elected officials or the representatives appear. State Representative Lauren Davis is a loyal attendee of NPAC. Thank you for attending with District 32. And also Joel Raphael, who is the legislative liaison for Dan Strauss in District 6. They're both great about attending. We so appreciate that. With that, I am going to just remind you again, the next meeting is on Wednesday, November 5th. And we appreciate your attending tonight. Recognize that we can't necessarily get to all questions. We do our best. Try to make sure we got the gist of, if you had a question, we may not have read yours, but it was probably covered in some other fashion. So apologize if we didn't quite get to you. We appreciate you all coming. We hope you decided this is an interesting and effective meeting that you want to come. It's a great way to get connected if you have direct questions, as you can tell. And with that, I'm going to say good night and thank you all. And if the board would stay on, that would be great. Thank you very much.